Hi, so welcome to another episode of History Hunter's Signature Edition. This is where I talk about autographs and how they relate to history. Today I'm going to be talking about some TV history. Millions of us kids back in the 50s and 60s were enamored by TV shows that involve Michael Landon. Specifically, I'm talking about Bonanza. I'm talking about Little House on the Prairie. Of course, Bonanza ran from 1959 to 1973, and I think a lot of us were heartbroken as kids when we found out that Hoss Cartwright, the actor Dan Blocker, passed away. It was May 13th, 1972. He went into the hospital for a simple gallbladder surgery, and he died of a blood clot at the age of 43. He left his wife and his children. Basically, his death was the death knell for Bonanza, which is already sliding in popularity. They produced a special show where they showed the death of the character, directed by Michael Landon. And then, of course, not long after that, Little House on the Prairie debuted. Of course, we all got into that. And for me, I was especially interested because I know that Michael Landon was in my area of Central California filming the pilot and some episodes. I decided to write to Michael Landon and ask him his thoughts about Dan Blocker, losing Dan Blocker. And he wrote me a letter. It was February 1975. I was really proud to get it. I'm happy to report that he actually authentically signed that letter. Now, it's not going to come as any surprise to you that Hollywood stars often do not sign their own name through the mail. Michael Landon was pretty much the same. He didn't sign a lot of stuff, especially during his Highway to Heaven years. So a lot of the stuff that was being sent from his office, supposedly signed by him, was not actually signed by him. It was signed by a secretary. I have not identified who that is. The really troubling thing for me is that there's some autograph authentication firms who are authenticating secretarial signatures of Michael Landon, and I know that people are spending a lot of money for stuff that he didn't sign. And I just want to call him out on it. It's just not right. Now, you might ask me, how do I know Michael Landon's signatures from the secretarial signatures? I had the opportunity to shadow Michael Landon on 2 occasions in Central California. At that time, I got a number of autographs from him, and I noticed that the signature that he was signing in front of me vastly different than what was being sent out from his studios down in Southern California. And so I put 2 and 2 together. There was somebody signing for him. And like I said, it's really troubling to know that those signatures are being sold as authentic. In this episode, I'm going to go over the letter that Michael Landon wrote to me. I'm going to show you the real thing. And I'm also going to show you the secretarial stuff that's being sold as authentic. You know, I think about letters like this that not only reflects history, but was also a part of my history growing up, because I received this when I was in junior high school. I was really excited to get this letter from Michael Landon. I took it to my school and showed all of the kids in class and held on to it all these years with the envelope. And as you can see, it's on NBC TV letterhead. It's from West Alameda Avenue in Burbank, the network that Michael Landon was producing, Little House on the Prairie. It was dated February 26, 1975. It reads, "Dear Jeffrey, thank you for your letter and kind comments on Little House on the Prairie. I am delighted that you enjoy this series and hope you will continue to watch it. Regarding your queries on Dan Blocker, he was a very gentle and warm human being. Everyone loved him. He was also a very devoted family man who lived in the suburbs of Los Angeles with his wife and 4 children. He left us much too soon, and we miss him. I trust this answers your questions, and again, thank you for your interest in Little House. Sincerely, Michael Landon." And there at the bottom is his ballpoint pen signature, written with very low pressure. It's one of the few authentic letters that I have seen signed by him. Dan Blocker was born on December 10th, 1928 in DeKalb, Texas. He studied drama in college, and in 1946 he played college football in Texas. He was drafted into the Army and fought in the Korean War, where he was actually wounded. He returned and became a school teacher in Texas and in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and in California. After he earned a master's degree in dramatic arts, he found a number of TV roles. His big break came in 1959 when he was cast as Eric Hoss Cartwright on the NBC TV series Bonanza, and he played the role in 415 episodes until his death. Blocker said that he portrayed the gentle-natured Hoss character with a quote in mind, "We shall pass this way on earth but once. If there is any kindness we can show or good act we can do, let us do it now, for we will never pass this way again." When I got the letter from Michael Landon, I think my brother was envious. He wanted to see what would happen if he wrote to Michael Landon. And so we wrote to him after we saw an article in the papers saying that him and his wife had just given birth to another baby. It was a boy by the name of Christopher Bowe. And so Kevin wrote a letter to congratulate him. And unfortunately, probably a million other fans wrote to him at that time. So the best way that they dealt with that was to send out a form letter. Basically, he wrote a letter saying thanks for writing to me, and he signed it, but he didn't send out the original. He sent out photocopies of it, basically preprints, and then they just typed in the name and address of the recipient. Even though Kevin's letter is printed, it shows the authentic signature of Michael Landon on it. So it offered me a valuable tool to determine what Michael Landon's real signature looked like. Of course, when Michael Landon announced that he had pancreatic cancer, millions of Americans who loved his shows and loved him as an entertainer were pretty devastated. Of course, it was in all the tabloids, and they weren't treating him very kindly. To dispel kind of the nasty rumors that the tabloids like to spread, he went on Johnny Carson and tried to show his best side, that he was looking forward to the future, and he was being positive about his disease, even though he was being a realist.
Rise as a man. Would you welcome Michael Landon?
Right. Didn't do a hell of a lot of good to call the press conference, though. There's a big headline in one of these incredible magazines about the fact that I want to have a 10th child so my wife will have something to remember me by. I mean, I got 9 kids, 9 dogs, 3 grandkids, 1 in the oven, 3 parrots, and my wife, Cindy, needs something to remember me by?
How many suggestions you get? You said you had tapes, you had books.
There's thousands. There's thousands. Swim with a dolphin. You only have to do it once.
Swim with a dolphin?
The sonar from the dolphin. Ping! Ping! It goes away like this. What can I tell you?
Yes.
Here I'm going to all these hospitals. I only got to go to Marineland.
Look
When I saw both Landon and French filming scenes for Highway to Heaven at Tulloch Lake in 1984, I watched both of them lighting up cigarettes. Funny thing is that in the TV show, Landon plays an angel by the name of Jonathan Smith, who often harped on French's character of Mark Gordon for smoking. Years of smoking caught up with French, who developed lung cancer, and after he was diagnosed 3 months later, on June 15th, 1989, he passed away. When Landon developed pancreatic cancer, he suggested it was perhaps due to his years of smoking, his alcohol intake, and lack of sleep. This photo is particularly heartbreaking. Jennifer, his daughter's in the back seat. He's grinning. He's leaving the hospital on May 24th, 1991. He would die a little more than a month later at his home on July 1st, 1991. I think it's probably one of the last pictures ever taken of him. You may have seen the video where I visited his grave at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City that I shot a couple years ago. Just a little background information as to how I found out that Michael Landon was filming in my part of the world. There was an article about Cindy Landon, who was Michael Landon's wife, dropping her purse on the streets of Modesto when they were in this area filming. Cindy Landon had brought Jennifer Landon, their daughter, to Modesto to see a doctor while they were in Tuolumne County filming Highway to Heaven, and she inadvertently put her purse on top of the car, and when she drove off, it fell into the street. It was picked up by a Modesto school teacher who saw it lying in the street. When she opened the purse, she found the driver's license for Michael and Cindy Landon inside, and then she contacted Modesto police, who then got it back to the famous couple. Somehow I got a hold of Kent McRae, who was the producer of Highway to Heaven. He told me that they were going to be filming at Tulloch Lake Resort at Tulloch Lake in Tuolumne County. Gave me the time that they were going to be there, so we headed up there. Our visit included a bonus. Cindy Landon was there herself. She brought her daughter Jennifer to the filming location, which was the hotel. While at Lake Tulloch, Landon's off-color humor surfaced once. He was walking his daughter around the parking lot, and I don't know if he said this because he wanted to shock us, because we were within earshot of him, but he began to recite Humpty Dumpty with a twist, and it went something like this. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, all the king's horses and all the king's men Jennifer Landon, who was born a year before my son Brett was born, that June of '84, she was fascinated with Brett, wanting to touch him and look at him, and she was grinning at him. And at one point, they shared a leaf together where they were both touching the same leaf. Either Michael or Cindy was commenting on the shape of my son's head for some reason, thought it was a perfectly shaped head. When I started out making this video, I had no idea that Jennifer Landon was actually an actress herself. She's starring in the TV drama series Yellowstone. She played the character
Teeter. 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 I think I am Teeter. Deep down, I think so. I think I'm a feral, kicking little weirdo.
So that was kind of neat finding out about that.
30 years ago, my father, Michael Landon, passed away from pancreatic cancer just 3 months after his diagnosis. November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and this month, PanCan is talking about the importance of testing for patients and their families. Talk, test, and take control. You will make a world of difference.
The episode filmed at Tulloch Lake was called One Winged Angel, and Jonathan falls in love with somebody that he wasn't supposed to be falling in love with. The following week, I found out that the production was going to go to the tiny town of LaGrange in Stanislaus County, where they were filming the episode Going Home, Going Home. And the production company basically took over the old LaGrange Bridge, where there was a time travel. Mark Gordon, played by Victor French, goes back in time after he gets into an auto accident and bumps his head. He gets to go back and see himself as a young boy. One particular scene that I got to see Victor French film with the little boy, actor by the name of Sean DeVerich. Michael Landon was coaching him on how to improve the scene. This is the picture that I snapped. I must have spent about an hour watching the production on the bridge. Between takes, I got to see Michael Landon look at a Christmas card that somebody brought to the set. Kind of got to see the personal side of him for a little bit. I also got to talk to Victor French, found out that he was kind of a funny guy. So I left the scene, came back a little bit later, got to see him filming another part of that same episode. And I got to actually address Michael Landon, asked him some questions. I don't know that he was too thrilled to talk to me. I know that they weren't filming at that moment. Him and Kent McRae were talking, and I was asking questions because I was there as a small town newspaper reporter. I sensed that he really didn't want to answer the questions and maybe felt like he was being burdened. When you're famous, you get bugged by everybody. Now, this is a picture of my grandmother when she got to meet Michael Landon. Of course, I told her that he was up there in LaGrange filming Highway to Heaven, so she went up there and got to meet him. She was pretty giddy when this picture was taken. I think she got his autograph, but I'm not sure where it ended up. But I have very fond memories. The last time I saw Michael Landon, they were in the car together. They were driving down the road with the camera hanging off the side of the car. And then I was very sad when I found out years later that he was stricken with cancer and then ultimately passed away. Okay, let's take a look at some of the signatures of Michael Landon. I'm going to start out looking at the most desirable, which is the signed photos from the Bonanza era. And this is an example of his authentic signature on a photo of him as Little Joe Cartwright. He's got this giant loop in front of the M, and then he goes into this giant swooping L for Landon. And typically, the Landon is always separated from the L and the A-N and then the D-O-N. As you can see, it's a lot more legible than it became later in his career. The most desirable of all Michael Landon's signatures would be that with the other cast members of Bonanza, and here's an example of that on a location meal voucher from the days of when they would go out on location and they were paid $2 for breakfast and $5 for dinner. And all cast members signed this one. Lauren Green, Pernell Roberts, Dan Blocker, and Michael Landon. Very rare to have it in that kind of form. This is a postcard that I picked up that's signed by 3 of the cast members, Michael Landon, Lauren Green, and Dan Blocker, all authentically signed. You can see Michael Landon's signature looks a little squashed. It always had a very dainty, feathery look to it. And as he got older, his signature got more illegible, and it also got more angular. Here's another photo that's inscribed to Gene. Best wishes, Michael Landon. It's also from the Bonanza era. You can see it's very consistent with the other signature that I showed. Now, I know this is authentic because I saw Michael Landon sign it for me in person. It's actually a snapshot of Michael Landon with my late wife and my son. It was taken in Copperopolis, California. And I took it to him the following week in LaGrange, California, where he signed it here. He typically would make his A-N in the shape of a C connected by a W, and then it goes into the D-O-N. That is almost a sure sign that it's authentic. Now, this is when I met Michael Landon. He was filming Highway to Heaven. Early December of 1984, my son, Brett, was born. Now, the reason that I put Brett in this picture is because when I was young, my mother met Walt Disney at Disneyland, and I was there in the stroller at their feet. She didn't put me in the picture, and I always told my mom, I wish you had done that. So when I met Michael Landon, I thought, I want Brett to be in this picture so he can look back on it and say, I got to see Michael Landon, or Michael Landon got to see me. Now later I sent this picture to the studio and he actually authentically signed it for me. Again, check out the A and the N in Landon and also the flat top on the B in Best Wishes. Now, if you had written to Michael Landon when he was producing his Highway to Heaven TV series, you probably would have got a card that looked like this. It was a colored postcard that featured the reproduction of Michael Landon's signature and Victor French's signature in yellow ink. I was fortunate enough to find this on eBay. It was the actual signatures used to reproduce those signatures on that card that was sent out to millions of fans. So I own the original signatures of both men that were pasted onto a halftone sheet that was used to reproduce these signatures. So that's a pretty cool item. Of course, as in the case of all of us, our handwriting changes through the years. Michael Landon's signature got more illegible and more angular in time. This is one of those rare instances in which they both signed authentically an 8x10 matte finish photo. If you remember, I told you that the A in Landon, he started out making as a C, and the N kind of looks like a W formation that actually joins up with the D, and you'll see it here, so this is an authentic example. Take a look here at Victor French's signature. This is how he really signs his name, but this is how his signature was being reproduced by the secretary that would answer autograph requests in the mail. The person who was signing for Michael Landon was also signing for Victor French at the same time. Now this photo made out to a ruby shows you the same formations that I talked about, the C and the W that are part of the Landon signature. And if you also notice, Michael Landon liked to make his capital B's kind of with a flat top. The secretary just never caught on to that. Now this is an interesting picture. It's a picture of Landon with the character actor Eddie Quillen, who played in at least one episode of Highway to Heaven. It's made out to Eddie. Thanks for another great job, your friend Michael Landon. As you can see, this was personally signed by Michael Landon. And you can kind of pick up on the characteristics of his signature and his handwriting. Again, the A and N in Landon is spot on. Here's another example of an authentic signature. It's on the still from I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Highly desirable piece. Now I'm going to show some examples of dealers who got it right. This one was authenticated by James Spence. This is absolutely an authentic piece. Beckett Grading Services is typically very good with authenticating. They got it spot on. This is a signature from the Bonanza days. It's authentic. Here is another example of Beckett getting it right. This is an authentic piece. Now this is another example of a good authentication call made by James Spence Authentication LLC. Nailed it. This is actually Michael Landon's signature. However, they totally got it wrong on this one. This is the infamous secretary who signed during the Highway to Heaven years. James Spence got it totally wrong. This photograph here of Michael Landon at the train station in Virginia City is authentically signed. It has been appropriately authenticated by PSA DNA. Again, you'll see that the A and the N in Landon follow suit with the characteristics that I told you about earlier. Here's another example of an authentic piece that's signed to a Donna. It has all the characteristics of an authentic signature that you want to see. Signed contracts are a sure bet because signed contracts are legal documents, and Mr. Landon signed those. Now, this was signed in 1958 by Michael Landon for the production of Johnny Risk, but again, you can see how his signature has evolved through the years. Here's a contract signed later. As you can see, his signature has the loop in the front to the M, the sharp angles on the M, the A and N in Landon. It's the formation authentically signed by him. Now, let's talk about the secretary. This secretary signed just about everything sent to Michael Landon during the Highway to Heaven years. And as you can see, if you just go on eBay, there's a ton of these secretarial signatures being sold as authentic. This one for $191.24. It's fake as heck. The dreaded secretary shows up on this entry for a signed photo done by the secretary for $300. What a deal. Here's another eBay example of that secretarial signature. This one, they're asking almost $200 for it. Here's another example of the secretary. This one on a script from a Mother's Love episode. Believe it or not, whoever was selling this wanted $600 for it. Okay, now I'm going to put you guys to the test. On the left is a Highway to Heaven script that is supposedly signed by Michael Landon, and on the right is a yellow piece of paper supposedly signed by Michael Landon. So based on what I've told you, which one do you think is real? If you guess the one on the right, you are correct. The one on the left is a fake. It's done by the secretary, and believe it or not, they wanted $500 for that one. There was a collector in Germany who contacted me to show how the secretary had sent him a photo supposedly signed by Landon, but it was signed by her, postmarked after his death. So apparently the secretary was signing for him even as he was on his deathbed in an attempt to appease fans and collectors. I found that rather shameful, and so did the guy from Germany. Now here are some examples of some blatant forgeries. This isn't even close. It's a great picture of Michael Landon, but it's not even close on his signature. This 3x5 index card to Tom is a total fake. This is a signature that's not authentic on a pink cover of a script. Totally bogus, found on one dealer's site. This is a total phony. It was listed for $360 by Todd Muller Autographs. You have to be very careful with this company. They often get it wrong. This is almost laughable. For $175, buy it now. BBC Emporium. That signature looks like a kindergartner tried to duplicate his signature. This is totally bogus. None of the signatures on this Bonanza Escape to Ponderosa script, draft 1960, none of the signatures are accurate. All the signatures look like they were done in Sharpie, and look like they were all done by one hand. Very, very bad forgery. Whenever you come across a cast photo that's supposedly signed by all four people, you have to really scrutinize it because it's very rare, and of course it's a target of forgers, and this is an example of that. So it looks like all three signatures, in my opinion, were signed by the same hand. Even if you look at the writing that's supposedly Dan Blocker and then Michael Landon, they just have the same feel to them. This is another bogus signature, in my opinion, from the Highway to Heaven years. Looks like a forgery. This, too, is a forgery from the Highway to Heaven years. It's not the secretary. I think somebody forged it. Now, this picture of Michael Landon at the Big Sky Ranch for the filming of Little House on the Prairie also bears a really strange signature. It's not even close. It's a forgery. Don't know who did this one, but it's obviously not authentic either. Now, these twin photos from the Bonanza days look like they were signed by the same person. Unfortunately, not Michael Landon. Now, the signature on this picture, not even close. I don't even know where they come up with that concept. Don't know who did this one, but it's obviously not authentic either. This is another bogus signature. I feel sorry for whoever went to the great expense of framing this thing. It's a total fake. The signatures don't look anything like the real signature. Here's another one that autograph dealer Presley Collectibles totally got wrong. It's made out to Elliot Fisher. Again, the signature bears no resemblance to Michael Landon's authentic handwriting. So I really didn't expect this video to get out of hand like it did. I started thinking about, I could add this and that and this and that, and I did. So I'm sorry if it was like overload. I originally just wanted to talk about Michael Landon's signature, but there were so many other things that I could talk about, and I wanted to put it all in one video. I'm curious what you think about Michael Landon's career. Were you a fan of his, or did you just not care for his programming and his personality? Also curious what you think about celebrities sending out fake autographs to fans. Do you think that's disrespectful, or do you think that's just, expected? You're writing to somebody that's very popular and gets a lot of mail, and of course you're not going to get anything real in the mail. Personally, for me, as an autograph collector, I think I would rather have somebody be honest and upfront rather than try to duplicate the signature and fool me. I'm looking to collect the real thing from the celebrity, not have somebody stand in and do it for them. So what do you think? Let us know in the comment section below. I appreciate you getting to the end of this one. Thank you so much.